Alright guys, today we're taking a simple dough and turning it into 2 rustic loaves, one baked freeform on a tray and one in a little Dutch oven. Same dough, 2 different results, and this is where bread starts to get fun. Only 4 ingredients for this one: bread flour, water, instant yeast and salt. And I'm using the Matthews Cotswold flour 8 grain for this. It really is a nice flour, makes a lovely loaf. So we start off by weighing the 500 grams of bread flour we need. I was going to do this in my flat mixing bowl, but it's so big it kept pressing the off button on the scales. This 8 grain flour, it has wheat, rye, oat flakes, malted wheat, maize grits, millet, linseed and sunflower seeds in it. Nice and healthy. And when I say flat mixing bowl, it's really a Pyrex oven dish with deep sides, ideal for this type of bread. Sprinkle on 7 grams of instant yeast and give that a mixing in. Make a well in the centre of the flour and pour in the water. I used cold water for this one. I don't know why I bother making a well because it goes everywhere anyway. Mix the flour into the water, or is it the water into the flour? Never really sure this one. I'm using a fork for this. A fork works well for me. You can get straight in there with your fingers if you want, but you'd end up picking crusty bits out of your fingernails for the rest of the week. When it's all come together a bit like this, then sprinkle over the last ingredient, which is 10 grams of salt. I use fine salt for this, it just seems to mix a little bit quicker. I always sprinkle it everywhere if I can, I don't just dump it in. It just makes mixing it a bit easier. And then just carry on mixing until that's incorporated. And there's basically no dry bits of flour left. And this is another one of those doughs where you think, what the bloomin' heck am I making here? What a mess. And this is because it's a very high hydration dough. 400 ml of water to 500 grams of flour is 80% hydration. We'll talk more about hydration in a future video. We're just going to cover the dish now and leave it for an hour. No need to put it in a warm place, just leave it on the countertop. And even after an hour, it's still looking very watery, a bit like a mud pie. So what we're going to do now is fold it in on itself. Very, very wet fingers for this one. It stops the dough sticking to you. Just grab the corners, grab the edges and fold them in towards the centre. If you can, just gently stretch it upwards as you fold. It doesn't always lend itself to stretching at this stage, but it's getting there. I went round twice with this one, folding and stretching. I was trying to get it into a ball shape, but it's a bit difficult when it's this soggy. But perseverance prevailed and it ended up as a ball shape, which surprised me actually. It normally just goes floppy all over the bottom of the dish. We're going to cover this again and leave it for half an hour to an hour, but this time I put a bit of greaseproof paper on top of the dough first, just to stop it sticking to the tea towel. And we're going to repeat the stretch and fold and cover and leave for half an hour to an hour, twice more. So that's 3 times in total. Notice I am using a lot of water for this, and each time I'm doing it, the dough is looking more like a dough, more stretchy and more forgiving. And here it is after the 3rd stretch and fold. This isn't the classic stretch and fold, this is just a quick one to make a rustic loaf. We'll do a proper stretch and fold loaf in the future. Now you'll notice how sticky it's still looking. So loads and loads of flour on your work surface before you tip it out. Makes it so much easier to handle. You can see the grains in the dough now. They've taken on a bit of water and swollen up a little bit. And you'll also notice the gluten strands clinging to the Pyrex dish. And now it's time to form the dough into the shape of the loaf that you're after. If I was making a bloomer type loaf, I'd just keep folding the top into the centre and the bottom into the centre and pinch the ends closed. But I wanted to make 2 loaves, so what I've done, I just carried on folding it in towards the centre all the way around and divided it into two. And knowing that I was going to make one loaf in a Dutch oven, I formed one piece into a ball and the second piece into, well, like an oblong. A very rough oblong as it turned out. Cover the two pieces and let them rest for a quarter of an hour. It is important to let the dough rest after you've been playing with it. I mean, let's face it, you've just taken it to within an inch of its life by all this stretching and folding. It needs to recover. Get your oven preheating, fairly hot for this one, 230 Celsius. For the Dutch oven, I'm using my small casserole dish, and that's in the oven as well, getting nice and hot. And I'm using a preform liner to go into the casserole dish. One more quick fold and put the dough into the liner, seam side down. And for the freeform loaf, I'm going to put this onto a Pyrex baking tray, and that's in the oven preheating as well. Another quick fold, and onto a piece of parchment paper, seam side down. I like to use parchment paper, it makes handling the dough a lot easier, and there's less risk of it sticking to the tray. You can use a dusted baking sheet if that's what you prefer. Okay then, my Pyrex tray is nice and hot. Now remember, just because your oven's gone ding to tell you it's up to temperature, it doesn't mean that the tray or the Dutch oven is. Cast iron Dutch ovens take an age to heat up. Slash a groove in the top if you want. I'm using a lame for this one. Yeah, I should have wet it actually, it's quite sticky. And pop it in the oven for 30 odd minutes until the crust is golden brown and the loaf sounds hollow. Much the same with the Dutch oven. Remember guys, these things are very, very hot. You've got to be so careful not to pick that lid up without any mitts on. I used a pair of scissors to cut a cross on the top, back on with the lid, and once again in the oven for 30 minutes. And here they are 30 minutes later, going onto a wire rack to cool down. It's always a relief when you hear this sound after baking a loaf. Well, let's have a look, eh? Ready for this? Ooh. Very nice. Okay then, let's try it without any butter to start off with. Oh yeah. If you've never tried this flour, guys, give it a go. It is fantastic. The old butter on it. Seriously guys, I cannot fault this. What a lovely loaf. Let's have a quick look inside this one. I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to. Yeah, much the same. Brilliant. Oh, that smell. Right, I'm going to keep that one together. So this one open baked, just on a hot Pyrex dish. And this one just done in a sort of Dutch oven. Small Dutch oven for a small loaf. Very nice. That's me salted bread for another couple of days. Let's put this butter away before I forget. Brilliant. Well, there you are, 2 rustic loaves from one dough, a freeform loaf and a Dutch oven loaf. I'm not sure which one I prefer, to tell you the truth. I do err on the side of the Dutch oven one. A little bit better crust and it's easier to control the shape. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Stay tuned, more bread coming soon.